All right. Our next speaker is Brittany D'ambrosio from Interdisciplinary Research on Substance Use with the talk Language Matters, Stigma, and the Opioid Overdose Epidemic.
A few years ago, I interned at a substance use treatment facility where I sat in on weekly group therapy sessions. And I remember this one day so clearly. One of the clients who was doing so well in treatment came into group, and immediately I could just tell that something was wrong. This client went on to describe how they just lost their job because their employer found out that they've previously used heroin. I started to tear up as I listened to this client describe their experience, their feelings of anger and hurt. They asked, why bother even trying when people will only ever see me as a junkie? I watched how these stereotypes of using terms like junkie and the discrimination of losing your job because of previous substance use significantly impacted this client's treatment progress. The client went on to resume heroin use, and eventually they stopped coming to group. Now, this experience made me want to fight for this client. Not physically, of course, but in the sense of advocating for this client and the many others who've had a similar experience. Now, the opioid overdose epidemic is a significant public health concern. In 2019, there were over 70,000 drug overdose deaths, of which about 70% involved opioids. And while there are many different treatment options available for opioid use disorders, they're highly underutilized because of stigma. Specifically, we see a lot of stigma towards medication treatment, including methadone and buprenorphine, which are considered the gold standard for treating opioid use disorders. Now, when we stigmatize certain treatment options, we actually limit their accessibility to individuals who could really benefit from using them. So in my research, I'm currently examining how stigma towards medication treatment for opioid use disorders influences treatment decisions and outcomes among individuals in recovery. Now, through this research, I've learned that stigma manifests at different levels. It can come from laws and policies, from general society, from our family and friends, and sometimes even from within ourselves. I've heard things like how medication treatment is seen as substituting one drug or opioid for another, and that makes people not want to use it. So through my qualitative research, I've learned that education can be a great tool to decrease stigma towards medication treatment, but we also need more education within our treatment workforce, among persons who use opioids, and just our general society. So as I'm focusing my research on how stigma impacts treatment decisions and outcomes, I'm also thinking of ways to intervene on that stigma, such as how can we disseminate the education? Now, by focusing on decreasing stigma, I hope to increase treatment access, utilization, and improve the opioid overdose epidemic. Thank you.
Well done, Brittany. That was a really important talk about sort of our community. And I wanted to start by asking you sort of about the community that's important to you and sort of someone that's had an impact on you.
Yeah, so kind of how I mentioned in the beginning, that specific client had a huge impact on my kind of where I wanted to focus my research in the future. But along with that client in particular, it's been a lot of people. It's hard to narrow it down to one, but professors starting from my undergrad who kind of got me into this field by giving me experiences outside of the classroom, along with my family support and even my current faculty at UCSD. San Diego State. So it's been a really good community to have.
That's great. That's wonderful. And it's clear that you work very hard at very high intellectual levels. How do you recharge?
There's a couple of ways, but I would say one that's been really helpful for me is sometimes just going outside, taking a walk, and maybe throwing on a podcast. I'm a big fan of The Office, so I've been listening to the Office Ladies podcast, which kind of it's just a nice way to kind of get outside, but also remember all the funny aspects of the show. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a good kind of multitasking, it sounds like. So what's on your bucket list?
There's definitely a few things. One that's been on there for a while is skydiving. I don't know where I want to go. There's plenty of places to go skydiving, so plenty of options. But another one would be actually visiting all the Major League Baseball stadiums in the US. So I've gone to a couple. I'm from the East Coast, so I've gone to a couple over there. I've gone to Petco Park around here, but there's still plenty that I need to go check out. So yeah, it's my top two.
That's great. Maybe there's something with graduate and professional students being adrenaline junkies, because we've heard about a few sort of death-defying bucket list items. In addition to what you've already shared, what's something that people might not know about you?
So I'll say that a lot of people know that I studied abroad in Denmark in my undergrad because I talk about it any chance I get. But people probably don't know that even though that was back in 2014, I started picking up Duolingo to learn Danish about this past year through quarantine.
Nice. How did that go?
I won't try and pronounce any words, but it's just fun to kind of learn. So it keeps me kind of connected to Denmark, which is fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's great. Well, keep up the great work. You're doing all of us here at UC San Diego proud. Congratulations on getting to the finals.
Thank you.
You're welcome.